So the U.S. is what, 19% Latino? More than that. And yeah, you're going to have parts of the U.S. that have a lot of Spanish speakers. At the beginning of the country, they debated whether to have an official language, and they decided against it. So yeah, you live in a part of town that's got a large Spanish-speaking population. I forget what the rest of my points were. What's the next
Trump was allegedly rushed to the hospital, and it seemed like he was worried about it.
Fun fact, our president is the most obese president since, well, in 105 years, since the most obese president in history, William Howard Taft. And yeah, just over the weekend, Trump was rushed to the hospital and was given part of his annual exam, even though it's only been 9 months. So people are wondering about that. You know, it could have been, it's a lot of tests. So he might have just had some downtime, and they wanted to get started on the tests. But people don't know because the White House is not very forthcoming. And a lot of statements come out of the White House that turn out not to be true. So people just don't know.
When's the last time they had a press conference?
All right, they haven't had a press conference in, what, 7.5 months? But that's not entirely fair because Trump will take some questions when he's getting ready to leave the White House. So, I mean, I know Stephanie Grisham, who's the new press secretary, like we knew, what's her name? Sarah Huckabee was the old press secretary, and before her there was Dancing with the Stars guy, Sean Spicer. But the new person is Stephanie Grisham, and only Fox News viewers know her because she doesn't hold press conferences, she just goes on Fox News, which is probably not the best thing, but I don't know if it's the worst thing either. It just is what it is. What's the next topic?
Lunch? Do you want to reply now?
No.
Okay.
Oh, let's talk about Thanksgiving.
Okay.
All right. So this year could be among the angriest Thanksgivings, family dinners ever, because people are more polarized than ever. And I could tell you to stand for your convictions and go to Thanksgiving dinner and let the relatives you don't agree with have it. But rather than doing that, I would ask you, what will this accomplish? Besides giving you some temporary satisfaction, and probably not even that. You're probably not going to change anybody's minds. And you could get in trouble if you whip a spoonful of mashed potatoes at somebody's face. So I will ask you this. Can you change anybody's minds? And who has the money in your family? There's this thing that's been going around for a few weeks called OK Boomer, where people who are younger than baby boomers accuse boomers of fucking everything up, of being complacent and greedy. And I'm not going to argue about that, but I am going to say that older generations do have a shitload of money compared to the younger generations. And I'm just asking you, before you go crazy at Thanksgiving dinner, not to fuck yourself over if you're among the younger generations by going crazy on a grandma or a grandpa or an uncle who might have money for you to inherit. So just think about it. Do you really want to piss off grandma and grandpa if they have all the family money? Will you risk being disinherited or having your parents disinherited because you get in their face because they're brainwashed by Fox News? Now, or there might be another way to play it. Instead of direct confrontation, maybe go for pity. Maybe break down in tears at what's going on with the country and you're so sad that members of your own family believe what they believe because of what they watch on TV or on the internet. So I'm just saying, play it smart this Thanksgiving. That's it.
I am an orphan, and all of my family is gone or I'm not speaking to, so I've never felt so free, and I feel great about it. People, I have advice to the average person, and that is, I've noticed a lot of people, when they become adults, they maintain relations with family members that they hate or that really aren't good to them. And they feel guilty about it if they don't. And I would just like to say that when I was a young man, I entered a sort of a spiritual path. I spent several years meditating. I had a Zen master. And it was fascinating because you would think that a spiritual person would grow closer to their family. But I actually found that it was very liberating because I learned that many people in my family were just idiots and didn't deserve to be listened to or had dinner with or anything. And that just because we happen to share a bloodline or a roof, it didn't mean that they were wise or on my side or good to be in my life. So I'd just like to say, if there's anybody out there that has a toxic relationship with a relative, you don't have to be in that anymore. You can move along. They'll be all right. It's okay. Lance from the Lance versus Rick show, give you permission to stop talking to some relative that is toxic to you.
Unless they've got a bunch of money you're going to inherit. But anyway, this brings up 2 points. Like what you said brings. What you said made me realize how lucky I am, in that there are almost nobody I consider a dickhead in my family, and that makes me feel good. And it also makes me feel a little sad because some of the people are gone. And I wish I'd become closer to them, because it's like that thing. When you're a kid, you think the adults are dickheads, and then you grow up and you realize they weren't really dickheads. And I had that situation with a couple people, and I wish they were still here so I could still be with them and grant them respect. That's thing one. Thing two is, I fucking hate it when at Thanksgiving and on a certain Jewish holiday, they want somebody at the table goes around and makes everybody say what they're thankful for. That I just don't. I'm not your fucking monkey for my turkey. I don't like. I don't know. You like doing? Do you?
Well, I'd like to say two things. I got in the habit when I was in my 30s and 40s to tell young people that if there was an older person, like a grandparent that they loved, that spend as much time with them as you can, because they die. And when you're a teenager, you just don't know that someday grandma won't be there. So yeah, if you do care for somebody that's older, spend as much time as you can for them. So if we have any listeners that are young, spend time with grandma if you love grandma. As far as the great gratitude thing, I had I dropped a brush. You see it? I gotta find it, because if I roll over it, that's the end of the brush. I had a very interesting Thanksgiving. I'm going to tell a story. Since Thanksgiving is coming up, I'm going to share a Thanksgiving story with all of you. It's very heartwarming. So I had been accustomed to having Thanksgiving with these very, very cool artistic types when I was, I think, when I was a young, kind of sexy, rebellious artist. And all of these young, rebellious, cynical, cool artists would get together. And we would have these meals where we criticized everything from God to each other, viciously, to America, to everything. And one day, it was, it turned out we all got together, and just by accident, the conversation turned to the fact that several of the people in our little group were from former communist countries. They were from China and Poland and Russia. And we were linked together because we were all artists of different types. And for about an hour, the people from these communist countries swapped stories about how horrible it was to live in a communist country and how much better their lives are now that they're in America. And I waited till everyone was done, and I said, you know, has anybody remembered why we're here tonight? Because this happens to be our Thanksgiving dinner. And so I can't think of a better way to celebrate Thanksgiving and to be grateful to the U.S. And for maybe 1 hour, these cynical, cool artists got real quiet and realized, yeah, you know, Thanksgiving does mean something. Ta-da!
Okay.
Bryce, do you have any Thanksgiving stories you want to share?
No,
Insights?
not really. It never was like a fighting with relatives kind of thing.
Okay. What else?
I wanted to. You brought up being nice to old people before they're dead, and I've been thinking about this a lot, both with regard to people and with regard to animals, because we have two different attitudes. With regard to chickens, we kill in America, slaughter something like 9 billion chickens a year for eating, and who knows how many 100 million pigs, and the deal is that we have kind of minimum standards of decency towards these animals. But we don't like thinking about the conditions at these joints. And we also kind of figure, well, as soon as they get their heads chopped off or get punched in the head if they're a cow with one of those slug guns like they have in No Country for Old Men, scrambles their brains, we think, all right, well, you've erased their brains, and whatever misery they experienced at these factory farms is erased from their memories and the memories of the universe, basically. And that's our attitude towards animals. We just don't want to think about it, how they're treated, and we figure it's all okay because they're dead at the end and they don't remember. But with regard to people, well, it should be this, unless you believe in, an afterlife, it's kind of the same thing. You were nice to Grandma, but now Grandma's dead and she remembers none of it. So who were you being nice to Grandma for? I mean, for her while she was alive, but now she's dead and she doesn't remember whether you were nice or you were a dick. And I don't have any resolution for this issue, except to say that if you look at anything too hard, it becomes like puzzling and ridiculous, which takes me to sports.
Wait,
Okay.
do you want me to respond? Or do you want us to go to sports?
Well, no, go ahead, and then we'll get to. But remember, we're on puzzling and ridiculous.
I'm really happy that you raised the issue the way you did, because you very cleverly, and you do have the highest IQ in America, second.
No, you second in the
all right,
world.
all right.
There's a guy
Second
in Greece.
right. You adroitly pointed out that these are issues for atheists. And I would just like to say that because I'm a theist, because I'm a believer. I think that whatever we do matters forever, and that we're never completely obliterated, and that everything is very meaningful, and that even things you do after someone's gone matters to them. So my life as a believer is full of meaning, and none of these issues are of concern to me. If, on the other hand, you're an atheist, then yeah, grandma's gone forever, and nothing you do matters.
Though I'm not entirely an atheist, but I don't want to go into all that.
Okay.
But let's move on to sports because sport. Yes.
I have something
Okay.
ridiculous, and so this is
All right.
Thanksgiving related.
All right.
Ambrosia is fucking delicious.
Yes.
I spent my whole life avoiding that weird green crap that my aunt made. I refused to eat it, and I just thought it was disgusting. And I had some, I don't know, last year or so, and I fucking love it. It's just like Cool Whip and pistachio pudding and pineapple chunks or whatever it is. You know what I'm talking about?
Well, that's
like
that's
green
your
stuff.
family's recipe.
Yeah.
The Cool Whip is important, but a lot of families it's Cool Whip and cubes of Jello,
Yeah,
which is also awesome.
Yeah. So try new food.
Also, Cool Whip. Cool Whip comes in 3 varieties: full of fat, low fat, and no fat, and they all pretty much taste the same. So, given the choice, just buy the no fat Cool Whip and save yourself some fat. Also, one more thing: any time before the 70s, food was disgusting. Food was bad for the entire history of humanity for the most part until the last 40 years or so. And one thing that sounds fucking disgusting is tomato jello, also known as tomato aspic. Actually, though, sounds terrible. It's actually kind of good. Tomato jello with little slices of olives floating in it. You can eat a slice of it and kind of like it.
Just want you guys to know I've been friends with Rick for, 30 years now, 25 years? And I've seen him eat some horrible things. You don't want to go to a restaurant with Rick, and you don't want to watch him eat, because you don't know what this man will put in his mouth.
When I was a TV writer, there were times when I got in trouble for grabbing morsels out of the garbage. But
There you go. And didn't you eat pet food?
when I was poor, yeah, I would recommend thumbs up for dog biscuits, thumbs down for cat food, which for cat food they'll grind up bones. Like cats will cough up hairballs and stuff, and just balls of stuff. And so I feel like they're better able to deal with. I ate dry cat food, and I got a bone shard caught in my throat. Don't eat cat food. Dog biscuits, yeah, they're fine.
All right. And what about sports?
Sports. Well, sports is the same deal. Where sports provide they provide not a spiritual pleasure, but something like a spiritual pleasure in that there's no direct benefit to you when your team wins. It's not like, well, hold on. Okay, so Taco Bell has a deal that if somebody steals a base during the World Series, all of America who wants it can go get a free taco. That is a direct benefit, and that's kind of awesome. I did it once, and I got a Doritos Loco taco where the shell is made out of Dorito, flaming hot Dorito. Whatever. It was great. It was but that's most of the pleasure you get. Like if you like Tiger Woods and he wins a tournament, or if you like the Lakers and they're doing well, or whatever. There's no direct benefit. And it's a bunch of guys who are getting paid a bunch of money to live in your city and play a game with. And if you look at the rules of any sport, they get weird. Any sport has to have rules, but when you look at the actual rules that they have, they're a little goofy. They're just arbitrary, and they've evolved over time, and everybody's agreed that this is the way we're going to play the game. But there's no there's no metaphysical reason, there's no overriding reason why the distance from the pitcher's mound to the plate is 60 feet 6 inches. I mean, there are reasons. It evolved because that made the game work in a certain way. But it's, why the pitcher's mound has to be X inches tall or any of that stuff, or why the basket has to be 10 feet above the ground, and why it's okay to take certain drugs and not others. It's a bunch of arbitrary people, and the whole issue of whether a trans person should be allowed to compete. It's a bunch of decisions that, if you really examine them, don't hold up to scrutiny. And if you really examine how football works, there are a bunch of rules that some make more sense than others. But like soccer, a bunch of guys running around, they can't use their hands. It's like, well, that's part of the sport. That's the beauty of the sport. But really, it's a goofy rule that you can't use your hands. And it's the sport because they've been doing it that way for 500 years. But if you look at it too hard, it becomes ridiculous. And the general principle is, if you look at anything too hard, it's ridiculous. Like if you look at what makes us horny, that's super ridiculous. It's hardwired into us. Yeah, that thing. That makes us horny. But I mean, it's crazy that, like, Donald Trump. No, don't do that. Donald Trump is president because Anthony Weiner could not stop himself from sexting underage girls. There's a whole long chain of events, but it ended up with Trump becoming president because that guy needed to beat off in a certain way. And it's because nature needs us to really want to have sex so that there are more of us. And that, if you look at that, it all, the whole deal where the entire 21st century is because Bill Clinton couldn't stop himself from getting blowjobs from an intern. He had to get the BJs. He couldn't say, this is risky behavior. I'm the president of the United States, and the Oval Office shouldn't be sullied like that. Instead, he thought, I'm the president of the United States. I'm the most powerful man in the world. I deserve an occasional BJ. And then a whole chain of events from that snowballs, and we have a fucked up 21st century. All because guys like to jizz. It's ridiculous and senseless. Next topic, unless you want to talk about it. Okay, do.
Okay. So many things were said and uttered, and I just wanted to. I'm going to try and isolate it to just my response to sports. The thing about I'm gonna tie sports into two subjects that I hate. One being sports and the other women. The first is that what psychologists say about sports is that it allows us to feel all the feelings we would feel if there was a real crisis going on. So in other words, if one of the things that humans like is they like to release their emotions. So now you can't get excited and emotional about your life. You got to keep it together. But what sports do is they give you a situation where on the one hand, you know that none of this matters at all. It is absolutely, completely irrelevant. It's just a game. But you allow yourself to feel every single emotion. Excitement, loyalty, despondency,
anger.
Anger. All those emotions get to come out, and they get to come out in a safe way. Like you can't tell your boss you hate him, but you can tell the Bears that you hate them and you want them to lose the football game against the Vikings. Now, I'm going to add to that an observation I have about women, the subject I love the most. And that is that very often a woman who is the perfect employee to her boss and at work and to her coworkers will come home and be just the crabbiest bee on earth to her husband. And the reason is that for women, it's important that there be a place where they can be as emotional as they want and still be safe and still be accepted. So it's very important, I think, for young men and really any man that wants to understand women to realize that they need a place to be crazy sometimes when they feel like it. And you as the boyfriend, as the husband, need to provide them that. And it seems really unfair because you see the same woman in the courtroom or in the hospital.
Professional.
They're very professional. And you think, why can't she be that way with me? Because you took on the relationship, and that means you're the safe place for her not to be professional.
I have two thoughts on that. One is your spouse can come home and be cranky with you, but you should point it out from time to time. Because if you just roll with it without letting your person be aware, it can get a little bit out of hand.
But no closed fist.
Just couples counseling also.
All right.
You know, under Obamacare, if you can get some counseling for under your insurance, take advantage of it. As I've said, my wife and I have been going to couples counseling once a month for more than 25 years. And couples counseling isn't always like just scorched earth with two people on the couch just saying the worst fucking things in the world to each other. A lot of, if you do it right and if you understand the rules of it, which is to not win,
You okay?
except maybe a little. Couples counseling can just, it could be a good way to work through some stuff in your marriage in a refereed environment. That's thing one. Thing two is, you kind of mentioned professional behavior at work. There's professional behavior, but there's also, when people are trying to fuck you over at work and get you to do a lot of like unpaid work or do a lot of shit without, under unfair conditions or for not enough compensation, and you complain about it, or then they say, well, you're not being professional. So that's a trick and a trap. There is professional behavior, not being a shit at work, but there's also some people will try to fuck you over by saying if you don't do the shitty stuff they want you to do, that you're not being professional. So just be aware of that.
All right. What time is it?
We got like 20 minutes to go.
All right. One last topic.
12:38. Want to take a break?
Sure, let's break. All right, let's do this. This is a chart that from today's LA Times. It shows via clusters of heads which LA celebrities are donating to which presidential candidates. LA being a liberal town, and also since Kamala Harris is from California, she's got a bunch of she's surrounded by celebrity heads, like Sean Penn and Anthony Anderson, and followed by Pete Buttigieg. By the way, Buttigieg is a great name. So when I run for president, I'm going to change my last name to Party House. Um, anyway, so here's any comments on these celebrity clusters?
You know, you gotta hand it to people who are crazy enough to contribute to money to candidates that aren't even getting the nomination yet. I mean, when you think about it, um, what a gamble that is. Like, is it a tax write-off?
Um, I don't know. I think so. Yeah, it's contribution.
Well,
So
helps your career too, I think. It's like I contributed to Bernie Sanders, that makes it cool.
I don't know.
So,
Get your next role.
so I see that Marianne Williamson.
Oh, how many heads does she have?
Well, the funny thing to me is that she's the metaphysical candidate. Doesn't she have some kind of spiritual ideas that she wants to share?
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe in metaphysical things, but I wouldn't bring it to a presidential candidate. But to me, what's funny about it is her supporter is the dude, Jeff Bridges. So it makes perfect sense.
Well,
So your point, Rick.
I don't know. I just thought it was interesting to see all those celebrity heads. Um, and I guess if we're going to talk about celebrity decisions, I think it helps to make it an entertainment. People don't. A lot of people come out here, um, and you see them driving around for the first 3 months before they get California plates. They're optimistic and they drive like shit. They drive like very arrogantly because they think they're going to take the town by storm. And then they either calm down or they go home. But a lot of people who come out here don't think about how being smart is helpful in entertainment. Oh, but before I forget, did you ever have any like movie star Thanksgivings where like David Niven or Cary Grant was at the table with you?
We used to have two stars over to the house a lot. We had many stars come over to the house, but if you people remember, I don't think anybody's going to remember. Anthony Newley used to come over for dinner, and we never ate with Dom DeLuise. He used to come over to the house a lot, but Dom DeLuise, eating with him would have been a sort of a professional experience. So, I mean, it would have been way too much pressure for anybody. So he ate before he came over. Because the man, if you don't know, Dom DeLuise was a very obese man that was obsessed with food and took food as seriously as I take politics. And so we didn't want to tread in those waters with him, but he did come over to the house a lot.
All right, so to get back, the people who succeed long term in entertainment, beauty is, there's a surplus of beauty in the entertainment. You can find beautiful people, as many as you want. So just being beautiful won't get you over the hump. But being smart, and if that smart translates onto the screen, that can help you. Like frickin' Meryl Streep is not a stupid woman, and there are probably few, long-term established performers who are dumb. But that expertise doesn't, always apply to choices. Like Gene Hackman said, because Gene Hackman made a bunch of shitty movies, and I think he said, they pay me to act in movies, not to choose them. And so, freaking celebrities, they'll make dumb choices in politics.
What I find is that when I go to see a movie, when I'm choosing a movie by the star, it's not because I like the actor as much as if that particular actor usually plays in good movies. So I'll give you an example. Off the top of my head, Viggo Mortensen, who played Aragorn in Lord of the Rings, he usually is in really good movies. I haven't seen him do bad movies. I don't think I've ever seen him in a bad movie.
Well, sometimes they're so bad that you only see them on Netflix.
Brad Pitt, Brad Pitt has done a few bad movies, but usually they're good movies.
He likes to do stuff. He likes to challenge. He doesn't want to just be a pretty boy. He did that many years ago when he was pretty new. He did 12 Monkeys.
Which was a superb movie.
Yeah, but he wore contact lenses that made his eyes all wonky, pointing in different directions, and played an unkempt crazy guy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I saw two movies we could talk about.
All right, what'd you see?
The ones that's most pertinent to us is Bombshell, which is about sexual harassment at Fox News by Roger Ailes and incidentally by Bill O'Reilly. But I thought they did a fairly balanced portrait of Ailes in that they didn't initially, the predatory behavior came out over the course of the movie, but before that, they presented some of his good points. He had a quote that I really liked, which is that liberals want to live in a future that they're too lazy or arrogant to create.
Wow.
I thought that was insightful,
Interesting.
even though I'm a liberal. And I mean, he was a smart guy. They had him fully cognizant of the way he looked, because he looked like hell. But anyway, and they had everybody. They had a look-alike. The cat, like sometimes when they cast a movie, well, usually when they cast a movie, they don't really want everybody in the movie to look like the character they're playing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not important. In this movie, they tried to get everybody as close to looking like the real people at Fox News as possible. And it was weird because like the O'Reilly was a dead ringer, Gretchen Carlson was a dead ringer, Charlize Theron played Megyn Kelly, and they had her look and sound exactly like Megyn Kelly.
Wow.
And they also, there were some characters who I think were composites, but I think when a character was a real person, it seemed like they did a lot of fact checking to make sure that that whatever was said, somebody could. You like affidavits. Somebody probably either wrote about it in a book or had it somewhere was vouching for it on paper.
Mm-hmm. Well, they'd have to. There was a guy. Who was the guy in 60 Minutes that died?
Well, everybody died because
No,
they're all
but
100.
right, no,
Morally
who's-
safer.
No, the other one.
Wallace?
Yeah, Mike Wallace. Christopher Plummer played Mike Wallace brilliantly. Now, our millennial viewers don't know who Mike Wallace or Christopher Plummer are, so that goes there. But I would just like to say something about these sexual harassment and the news people. Who was the fella that used to do those?
Charlie Rose.
Yeah, Charlie Rose. I have a theory about Charlie Rose, and I don't know if I shared it already, but some of you will probably remember he was on the top of his game as recently as like 4 years ago, 3 years ago, I think. Anyway, Charlie Rose was an elderly man that did these very in-depth interviews that were very entertaining and interesting. And he was thrown out with the Me Too movement. And what he was accused of was he was accused of inviting women to his house that were sort of subordinates or interested in whatever. in the news industry or whatever, journalists or whatever, and he would walk into the room naked, like just coming out of the shower or just coming out of the pool or something. And so that's why they got rid of him. Same thing, I think, with the Republican we were talking about a minute ago, Bill O'Reilly. Yeah, something like that with him.
You would get on the phone with people and give them advice on masturbating and shit like that.
Okay, well, that I don't know. But my point is this. I actually have an insight into this. This is my theory. My theory is that a guy like Charlie Rose, has been famous for maybe 30 years. And he looks like he's around 70 now. But when he was 40, back in 1980, he could probably walk out of the shower nude and end up having sex with the woman that he invited over. And it probably happened 150 times. And then what Charlie Rose didn't do was realize that he had become in his late 70s or 80s and couldn't keep doing that.
Because he looked like shit. Well, except that, I mean, there was still a power differential even when he looked okay in 1980.
Yeah,
naked.
I'm not a feminist fanatic like you, Rick. I really don't give a damn about the power differential. I'm not a communist. I'm not worried about the
Yeah, but a 40-year-old Charlie
issue.
Rose, a 40-year-old Charlie Rose walks out, and the woman doesn't think, I've got to fuck this hot guy. She thinks, I can fuck this guy.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, and I that's my point. My point is that Charlie, I would bet, and by the way, the same thing. Another guy was accused of that was this incredible opera singer.
Pavarotti?
Recently. No, he's one of the three tenors in L.A. It was Pavarotti, and then he's the Hispanic tenor on the same level. He's the head of the L.A. Opera, or a big shot in the L.A. Opera.
Yeah.
Anyway, he was accused of the same thing, sexually harassing, chasing some woman. And I'm thinking, it was a good-looking guy. I'm thinking that when this man was...
Placido Domingo.
Yeah, when he was 45 years old, he could probably have just walked into the audience of one of his shows and had sex with every woman in it in front of their husbands who would be clapping. And that's what's happening. This is why they keep catching these old guys, because they don't realize that they've gotten old.
That's only part of it.
And that what was kind of cool, like All the World Loves a Lover, is now disgusting.
That's only a
To the
small part
general
of it.
public.
Like Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about Harvey Weinstein. That's a different animal. I'm just saying when it's a sexy guy,
Yeah, but,
he's just become a befuddled old fool.
yeah, but Charlie Rose was, I don't think, ever, I mean, maybe he was mildly sexy, but it was never,
I'm going to tell you a secret, Rick. Women love famous guys. It's like an aphrodisiac to them. And if a guy is famous and pretty nice looking, that's it. It's all over.
yeah,
That's
but,
why we're doing this show, by the way. And we're only up to 300 views a week. But if we can get it up to 30,000, I think we've got a chance for some action, Rick.
I see myself naked a lot, and I'm more on the end times Charlie Rose than I am. I mean, and I work out 5 times a day, and parts of me are still decent, but really, nobody.
Well, we know a lot about your asshole.
Well, let's talk about my whole ass, because.
All right, I think that's it for our
No,
show.
wait, one more thing.
I
like,
think we're done. I think this is a good place to
this
stop.
is interesting in disgustingness.
We come in with the ass and we go
We're
out
going to
with
leave
the
with the ass. One of the doctors, one of the many doctors who's seen my ass over the past, well, actually this latest guy, he looks at my ass and he goes, "You've got veins in your ass." He looked at my actual butt cheeks and I go, "Yeah, I'm varicose all over." So like, you know, I have actual, you see veins. Like, I forget this because I don't look at my ass, but I have seen it, and it's a weird ass that has discernible varicose veins running down it. So, and that's probably not something that's going to get anybody to jump into bed with me except our dogs.
All right. All right. I'm going to tell first of all, don't let him, don't turn around during the seduction. Just face forward. Now, all right. So I'm going to tell a life drawing story. I draw nude people almost every day. Yeah, because I'm a drawing teacher, and I draw the nude, and I paint the nude, and I sculpt the nude, and I teach it when I'm not doing it myself. So one day I came over to a friend of mine's house. He was a very sophisticated, very intellectual man, and but he was kind of obese and funny looking, kind of short and fat and funny looking. And I go over to the guy's house. The first time I go over to his house, he opens the door and he's stark naked. And I said, "What's going on?" He said, "Well, I just got out of the shower and I didn't think you'd care." And then he says, "You know, you are an art teacher, a life drawing teacher." And I said to him, "It is precisely because I'm an art teacher that I care and am disgusted."
Oh, sad, sad. You crushed him.
Yeah.
And with that, should we wrap it up? Wait, you got one more
That's a
question?
good- That's an end.
Kudos to Adam.
Oh, kudos to our friend, Adam Lohr, who, if you're noticing that our presence on YouTube is getting more professional and jazzier looking, it's because of the help of Adam's help to have our shit look as it comes up on the.
Yeah, it's beautiful now. He's doing a beautiful job.
So thank you very much.
Thanks, Adam.
Just one last worse. Kaepernick was.
Oh, Colin Kaepernick had his tryout for. Didn't we already talk about this? So Colin Kaepernick's the guy who kneeled to protest police brutality. 3 years. He hasn't played quarterback in 3 years, even though he's, at least a middling and perhaps a better than middling NFL quarterback. And so he was invited after a lot of negotiation to show off his skills to personnel from 24 NFL teams this weekend, which he did, though it wasn't ideal for him. He had to pay on his own dime. He had to fly in his own receivers for the passes he was throwing, and people are speculating as to whether people who followed this say that a lot of quarterbacks who are lousier than Colin Kaepernick have been hired in the past 3 years, while he hasn't been because he's controversial. So it remains to be seen whether anybody will pick him up.
So at this moment, we don't know how it worked out.
No, I don't think anybody's tried to hire him yet. Maybe something will happen this coming week.
All right.
Lance, real quick, do you want to just briefly touch base, or you can do it for next week on safe spaces?
All right. So I saw a film that I want to recommend to everybody called No Safe Spaces. Now I don't remember what it's called.
That's what it's called.
No Safe Spaces. And it's a film by Adam Carolla and Dennis Prager. Now, if you don't know those two people, Adam Carolla and Dennis Prager are both my father and my older brother. So, in other words, Dennis Prager is a father to me. Adam Carolla, even though he's younger than me, I think of him as the older brother I never had. And they did probably the most important film of the year, maybe of the past 5 years. Now, it's a documentary, but everyone should see it. it's about how fascism takes over America. By the communists have infiltrated our schools, our colleges, and they're gradually destroying the freedom of speech and the minds of our young people. And I really think that you should see the film, and we'll have a discussion about it next week, Rick.
Maybe I'll look at it. I think what it's about is, now I like Corolla. Prager really bugs me, and I asked who else is in it, like Jordan Peterson and Ben Shapiro, and fucking Corolla is fantastically funny. Nobody would ever accuse Ben Shapiro of being a million laughs, nor Dennis Prager, nor Jordan Peterson. So I don't know if I can get through the whole movie. But the point of the movie is what's happening on college campuses, right?
Yeah.
That if a sufficiently inflammatory, usually conservative speaker is booked to speak on a campus, people will protest it to the point where that speaker can't speak, which in an open forum of ideas isn't ideal. However, on the other hand, there are provocateurs who specialize, and this kind of peaked a couple of years ago, I think, who specialize in being so inflammatory that they thrive on the getting kicked off of campus.
You're so brainwashed.
Well, no, because
it's so sick. All right, before we go on, I just want to respond. I just want to say that, one, I had a lengthy debate with Rick about a year and a half ago where I casually mentioned that conservatives are not being allowed to speak on campuses, and Rick said, that's ridiculous. Well, I've never heard anything of the kind.
I don't think I said that.
Yeah, you denied it.
Really?
And I was like shocked. I thought, oh Christ, am I going to have to look that up? How many hundreds of articles am I going to have to find? And Rick denied it. Rick, too, you vociferously said nonsense.
Are you sure?
Conservatives are never denied to speak on campus.
No, I wouldn't have said that. Because,
yeah, you did.
No,
you did.
You're gonna have
You
to
did.
look it up.
I couldn't prove it to you, and that was when I began.
No, because
when I began to realize how brainwashed you are.
No, because there are professional dickheads who thrived.
Well, there you go. There you go. Yeah, they're professional dickheads.
No, like I'll have to come up.
Rick's got an excuse. Get those fucking professional dickheads to not be able to speak. You just happen to not agree with their politics, but they don't have a right to speak. They're dickheads.
No, the Richard Spencer is kind of a professional dickhead, though he's not the guy I've got in mind. But I forget the guy's name because he hasn't been prominent in 2 years because his whole little way of being kind of fell apart.
Okay. Well, you're talking about Milo Yiannopoulos?
Yeah, that guy.
Now I have to help remind you how you're being brainwashed.
Well, because he hasn't exactly been prominent for the last 2 years.
That's because you people, you fascists, have prevented him from using his freedom of speech. Are you proud of yourself, Rick?
He was kind of a fresh, I don't know. Yeah, he was a professional dickhead.
Yeah, so if you don't like someone's politics, you want to shut him up. Right, Rick?
Part of his game was to be so outrageous that people would get pissed off, and then he'd thrive on the controversy.
Actually, Rick, nobody wants to be shut up. The people you think are outrageous are just people that disagree with you. That's the reason that you are brainwashed, because you've become a dangerous tool of the fascist socialists that want to shut up all conservatives. So congratulations, you've done well.
No, there's
you've imbibed the whole thing.
Nah.
So someday, when they're saying that I'm too outrageous to speak on a campus, Rick's just going to say, "Well, Lance, you're a professional dickhead." You see, you proved Dennis Prager's point. You may despise him, but he understands you better than you understand yourself.
Now, I mean, there are areas where what you're talking about is legit, where, like, when people talk, like, if you have I'm sure there's a whole section of the movie on pro-Israel speakers, right?
No,
No?
no.
Why? Nobody's ever kicked off a pro-Israel speaker?
Well, what I found interesting about the show is that they don't get into pro or con. They don't take a topic and say, now we're pro-Israel and they're not letting pro-Israel people speak. Or we're anti-gay and they don't let anti-gay people, and here's why. Because we think so and so. They don't do that. What they do is they take people from both sides, mainly conservatives, but they even quote liberals, many liberals, several, including President Obama, and say, look, everybody is beginning to agree that we've got to let people speak freely on campuses and that this is being stopped. Now, so what I'm saying is they don't use the movie to
Promote
push,
points
to
of view.
promote a point of view. All they're doing is laying bare the fact that your buddies, the socialists, are trying to stop people from speaking on campus. So you really need to see the show.
Maybe I will. Do I have to pay at a movie?
It's in Burbank. It's near you. It's AMC.
It's a documentary.
I may have to.
Ooh, sweet. Director says, okay.
All right. Can we wrap it up?
Yeah, all right. Send us money. Lance versus Rick at gmail.com is our PayPal account.
Yeah, I noticed, wait, before we shut off, I noticed that people aren't sending us any money. There was a flurry where we managed to raise about $100 in 2.5 years of shows. I know some of you people like the show. Don't feel that $5 is insulting. $5 could be the difference between me and making rent. So send the $5. We're okay.
I had a job where at the end of the night I had to pick the pennies out of the pee trough. For some reason, people would just throw their pennies into the urinal. I washed off those pennies and kept them. So, yeah, any amount of money is good.
Ooh. Wow, you got me there. Okay. Rick won that one.
All right.
That was the only one he's won, but he won.
All right, thank you.